We are opening the files today on a mind that was, well, constantly running at 50,000 volts, a self-described juggernaut who built entire literary universes out of, believe it or not, dime store magic tricks, comic strips, and this absolute, unapologetic, just explosive belief in love.
Yeah, it's quite something.
We are diving into the deeply layered world of Ray Bradbury, the author, the visionary, the collector of metaphors, and maybe, just maybe, the most unlikely and successful prophet of the modern age.
Absolutely. And the sources we've pulled together for this deep dive, they're really gold. It's a collection of these intimate, unfiltered interviews, spanning over a decade.
Right.
And they really pull back the curtain on the creative engine that drove this, well, literary giant for 90 years.
90 years.
Our mission here really is to kind of shortcut the journey for you, the listener. We want to extract the most profound insights, maybe some surprising anecdotes, and really get a handle on the core philosophies behind the man who gave us, what, more than 70 books,
Right.
600 short stories?
It's incredible volume. And when we talk about him being a prophet, I mean, that's not just blowing smoke, is it? It's astonishing how accurately some of his fiction mirrored our reality long before the tech even existed.
Oh, completely. Think about Fahrenheit 451. I mean, when it came out, 1953, right?
Yeah.
It felt like total high-concept fantasy. But look at the list of predictions now. He described flat-panel televisions, mounted on walls.
The wall-sized screens?
Exactly. Called them wall-sized screens.
Yeah.
And earbud headphones, constantly streaming stuff into people's heads.
Sounds familiar.
And 24-hour banking machines, ATMs basically, live, televised, fugitive chases.
Yeah, the reality TV aspect.
And crucially, this sort of intellectual and social decline that comes from information overload,
Yeah.
and the death of the physical newspaper.
Yeah.
He saw all that.
It's genuinely eerie how he nailed those mundane things that turned out to be huge cultural shifts. But he always insisted, didn't he, that he was just like taking dictation.
Yeah, he claimed his characters wrote that book. He just provided the years. That was his line.
It's amazing.
But his genius wasn't just prophecy, though. I mean, that's maybe the flashiest part. But it was the range.
Oh, the range, absolutely.
To really get a sense of the
Yeah.
sheer literary breadth we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Maybe look at 3 of his most famous short stories. They're so different.
Okay.
You've got the technical perfection of, say, There Will Come Soft Rains.
Yes. Which is just, it's chilling, isn't it? That perfectly mechanized house just going through its daily routine.
Singing the hour, toasting bread.
Reading poetry, yeah. Even though humanity's gone, wiped out by nuclear war outside, it's just
Yeah.
this study in cold technical efficiency surviving life itself.
And then you pivot to something completely different, like The Swan,
Oh, yeah.
which is this profoundly sad romantic piece. These 2 soulmates, they finally meet, but at completely the wrong time.
One's young, one's old.
Right. One starting out, the other's near the end. It just perfectly illustrates that tragedy of missed connections, dictated by time.
And then there's the one that literally gave us a catchphrase, a whole concept we still use. A sound of thunder.
The butterfly effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The time traveler steps on one tiny butterfly millions of years ago, comes back, and the present is irrevocably changed. Different president, different language even.
Yeah, it just cemented that idea, the butterfly effect, as this powerful metaphor for how even our smallest decisions, the tiniest actions, can ripple outwards, have these, universal implications.
That's the scope. That's the mind we're trying to get inside today. Okay, so let's unpack this. Where did all this boundless energy, this visionary storytelling, where did it actually come from? Our sources, they make it really clear that Bradbury's entire core, the bedrock of his creativity, it seems to be driven by one single word.
Yeah, just one. And that word is love. And he often, talked about it with all capital letters,
Yeah.
L-O-V-E. But he didn't mean it in a, sentimental or purely romantic way. He saw it as this unconditional, almost spiritual and physical imperative. It was the central driving force that validates, and this is his phrase, every molecule in this exploding soup of a universe.
Wow. That's intense.
For Bradbury, loving life, all of life, was basically the reason for existence. It was an act of validation.
And he wasn't just talking about the good parts, the sunshine and roses.
No, not at all. He explicitly included the difficult stuff. He expressed gratitude even for the dark aspects, the scary things, seeing it all as part of this huge, passionate, complicated existence we're in.
He felt that spirit, that love. It just shone through every page he wrote.
Yeah, he believed it haunted his words, his characters, even when they were describing, dystopia or death or fear. He loved life. He said yes to the whole damn thing, warts and all.
And this really fierce, intense attachment to life, to experience, it seems to connect to one of his most, well, frankly, most unbelievable claims, this idea of total recall.
Oh, yes. The myth of total recall, it's extraordinary.
He claimed he had almost total recall, stretching back not just to childhood, but I mean, virtually to the moment of his birth. Which, psychologists look at that and just flat out dismiss it, right? They say conscious memory before age 2 or 3 isn't really a thing.
Oh, absolutely. They talk about the physiological impossibility. The brain isn't developed enough for declarative memory that early. But Bradbury's response was just glorious, wasn't it? Always so dismissive.
What did he say?
Were you there? Because I was. That was it. Essentially saying, my personal experience trumps your general scientific theory. I was there.
And the memories he described were so specific. That's what makes it so compelling, even if it sounds impossible. Like lying in his crib at 2 weeks old.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Facing west, then east, looking at the window at the apple trees outside his house in Waukegan, Illinois.
Yeah.
Incredible detail.
And recalling the flavor of his mother's breast milk.
Yes, which she apparently confirmed he received 3 or 4 days after birth. I mean, that's a powerful sensory memory claim from infancy. But the memory that really grounds his belief in this, the one that's honestly the most jarring, is about his circumcision.
Right. He apparently asked his mother about it later in life. And he recounted being carried downtown, going upstairs, being laid on a table.
And 2 people leaning over him with a scalpel. He vividly remembered the pain. And this was supposedly at 5 days old.
5 days. Wow.
And here's the crucial piece, the context he offered as sort of proof. He believed it couldn't possibly have been a story someone told him later, because his mother was, in his words, a fiercely private, corset-on-too-tight kind of woman, Victorian-era sensibility.
So she wouldn't have discussed it.
Exactly. He argued she would never have shared such intimate bodily details with her young son unless he had truly remembered them himself and brought it up first. He felt that, the tightness of her Victorian restraint was proof the memory had to be internal, not something she told him.
So that deep, visceral sensory connection to his earliest moments, his root system, as he called it, that became this constant wellspring for his writing, this endless stream of pure experience he felt he never lost.
That seems to be the idea. And beyond those really personal memories, his imagination was also shaped massively by these foundational cultural influences, especially visual ones. His mother was a huge film fan.
Right. She named him Ray Douglas Bradbury after Douglas Fairbanks.
Exactly. He was seeing films constantly. The Hunchback of Notre Dame at age 3. D.W. Griffith's massive epic Intolerance when he was just a child.
And he carried that passion so deeply that decades later, when he was famous, he actually, he nagged the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, successfully. Nagged them into rebuilding part of that monumental Babylonian set from Intolerance right there at Hollywood and Highland, that iconic archway. That's partly thanks to Bradbury remembering his childhood awe. He literally put a piece of his cinematic inspiration back into the LA landscape.
Amazing. And his entry into reading wasn't like classic literature, it was comics.
Yep. His parents taught him to read using comic strips. Happy Hooligan, Bringing Up Father, stuff like that. He'd apparently roller skate downtown with his dog just to get the Chicago Tribune for the funnies. You could see how that sequential visual narrative would fuel his high-concept style later on.
But maybe the biggest early influence was his grandfather.
Seems like it.
Mm-hmm.
At age 4, his grandfather gave him these tear sheets from Harper's Magazine, and they featured an H.G. Wells story about a beautiful city of the future, all under glass, that really set his sights on science fiction,
Yeah.
And the grandfather also showed him the World's Fair's 1904 St. Louis, 1893 Chicago through its stereopticon. So he's experiencing these grand, optimistic visions of the future in 3D, right in his living room as a little kid.
And there's that lovely story about the crystal radio, too.
Oh, the primitive radio. Yeah, age 2. His grandfather builds him a crystal radio set. And he remembered pressing his ear to the porch floorboards on summer nights, hearing his grandfather's deep baritone voice coming up through the wood. That sound, that early tech, it was like the start of his lifelong connection to the future, to communication.
So all these things, the intense memory, the movies, the grandfather's visions, they all kind of converge in this one single, incredibly important moment, the one he always talked about, the Mr. Electrico moment.
Yes. The catalyst.
Yeah.
Labor Day weekend, 1932, Bradbury's 12 years old, visiting the Dill Brothers Combined Shows Carnival. And this event, he described it as if it altered his chemical makeup.
So Mr. Electrico, this performer, he sits in an electric chair, right? Gets charged up with 50,000 volts.
Yeah. And then he takes this flaming sword, taps young Bradbury on the shoulders on the nose, and shouts this electrifying phrase, "Live forever."
Chills, just saying it.
And the immediate result, the very next day, really underscores the symbolic weight. He was driving back from his favorite uncle's funeral.
Oh, wow. The timing.
Yeah. He sees the carnival tents down the hill near Lake Michigan. He yells at his father to stop the car, jumps out, and just sprints towards the tents. He was literally, consciously running away from death, running towards life, towards that electric promise of forever.
And he was shy, but he used a little magic trick to approach the guy.
Yeah, a small ball and vase trick, just to break the ice.
Yeah.
An act of courage for him. And it worked. Mr. Electrico then introduces him to the whole sideshow crew, the strong man, the fat lady, the dwarf, and, crucially, the tattooed man.
Who became the illustrated man.
Exactly. Immortalized. But the really magical part, the reason this story became legend, was what Mr. Electrico said next. He leans over to this 12-year-old kid and says, "I'm glad you're back in my life." He claimed Bradbury was his best friend who had died in his arms outside Paris in the Argonne forest back in 1918.
Whoa. That's heavy. Why would he say that to a kid?
Well, Bradbury himself speculated it was just the sheer intensity radiating from him, this unadulterated passion shining out of his face. Maybe Mr. Electrico, this showman, maybe a bit of a lonely philosopher himself, just saw a kindred spirit, a soul burning so fiercely he felt compelled to invent this deep connection, this past life.
Like a validation, a knighting almost.
Exactly, a spiritual knighting. It gave the boy permission to be that intense, to embrace it.
And the result was immediate.
Totally transformative. He left the carnival that day, watched the carousel spinning to the music, beautiful Ohio, he remembered, and just cried. Felt profoundly changed, like a chemical reaction had happened inside him. He went home and he said, "Within days, I started to write, and I've never stopped." That carnival, that man, that moment, it was the starting pistol for his entire life's work. And that formative intensity, sparked by Mr. Electrico and really fueled by that cinematic childhood, it translated directly into his professional life, especially his writing style.
Yeah, he saw himself as one of the first truly literary writers whose whole narrative sense was shaped by film, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is why his plots often read so fast. They feel very high concept. They're like movies playing out on the page, fully visualized.
You can really see that all-consuming passion for film, even when he was, facing a personal crisis. That story about seeing the Phantom of the Opera revival.
Oh yeah, age 10. He's convinced he has appendicitis, thinks he might die in days, groaning in pain in the theater.
But refuses to leave the movie.
Refuses to miss Lon Chaney. That's dedication.
Yeah.
Or obsession, maybe.
And then his family moves to LA in 34. He's 14. That must have been like heaven for a movie fanatic.
Total nirvana. And for years, he was this, impetuous Hollywood autograph hound, roller skating for miles every day, just hanging around the gates of Paramount, MGM, RKO.
And he had some amazing encounters, didn't he? And not just standing there passively, like with W.C. Fields.
Oh, the Fields story is classic. Gets his autograph. Fields looks him up and down, hands it back, and growls, "There you are, you little son of a bitch."
Must have been a thrill for a kid.
You bet.
Yeah.
And he saw Laurel and Hardy all the time. And get this. He actually helped Bette Davis push her way through a crowd into a side entrance of the Biltmore Hotel in 1935.
No way.
Yeah. Helped her squeeze in so she could get inside to win her very first Oscar for the film Dangerous. He was right there, literally in the middle of Hollywood history being made.
But the most chaotic story, the one that really shows his high-speed enthusiasm, involves Greta Garbo.
Ah, the Garbo collision. Yeah, 1938.
Yeah.
She was famously reclusive, right? She ducks out super quickly from a play downtown.
In Candida, I think it was.
That sounds right. Anyway, Bradbury, in his usual state of just buzzing energy, literally runs right into where she's trying to make her escape.
Oh my God.
He startles her so badly she panics, breaks free, runs across the street without looking, and nearly gets flattened by a car heading towards the Biltmore garage.
He nearly killed Garbo.
Almost. Just by being too enthusiastic about meeting her. A cautionary tale about fan energy, maybe?
So with all this film knowledge, this deep immersion, it led him to a really firm belief about what makes movies great, didn't it?
Absolutely. He was adamant. The secret of all great films is the screenplay. Always. He argued that a brilliant script makes good actors look like great actors. It elevates the performance purely through structure, dialogue, the story itself.
He used some contemporary examples too, right? Like Russell Crowe or Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, he wasn't knocking their talent exactly, but he called them nice, bland character players who excelled primarily because they had excellent taste in scripts, choosing things like L.A. Confidential or Moonstruck.
Whereas if you put them in a weak script.
Right, he argued put Spacey in a boring film like The Shipping News and you go right to sleep. For Bradbury, the script was the engine, always. Star power was secondary.
And his own all-time favorite films reflected that focus on story and vision.
Totally. Citizen Kane and Fantasia. He claimed he knew Kane was the greatest film ever made the first time he saw it, way before all the critics jumped on board.
In Fantasia, his passion for that was almost, aggressive.
Huh? Tyrannical is a good word. He loved it so much he bought tickets for all his friends. And if they didn't like it, he admitted he actually ended friendships over it.
Seriously. Over Fantasia.
Apparently. Imagine losing a friend because they weren't sufficiently moved by Mickey Mouse as the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah.
That's the level of passionate conviction we're talking about here.
Wow. Okay, so that deep conviction, that passion, it must have been severely tested during his big Hollywood screenwriting gig, the John Huston saga, adapting Moby Dick.
Oh, the Moby Dick story. Yeah, that was intense. On paper, it sounds like a dream job, right? Working for your hero, a master director like John Huston.
How did he even get the job?
Huston hired him after reading Bradbury's short story, The Foghorn. He sensed the ghost of Melville in the prose, which is an incredible compliment.
But the actual working relationship was really complex, wasn't it? Huston had this dark side.
Yeah, mercurial is the word. A need to tantalize people, as Bradbury put it. He told a story about Huston intentionally making his own wife cry right in front of Bradbury. Just cruel psychological games.
That's rough.
And then there was this lunch with English reporters where Huston just casually joked that Bradbury didn't have his heart in writing the screenplay.
Oh, that would kill you. Especially from your hero.
Absolutely devastating. Bradbury said he just froze up, left the lunch and cried, felt totally betrayed. Huston seemed to have this need to push people, to test their limits, maybe even break them a little.
But then he could also be incredibly supportive, like the knighting moment.
Exactly. That's the push-pull.
Yeah.
Bradbury recalled this dinner party where Huston suddenly commanded the room's attention, recited the entire 10-minute plot of The Foghorn purely from memory, and then pointed to Bradbury as the author.
Wow.
Bradbury said it made him blush with pride, made him feel willing to kill for him. That mix of emotional manipulation and profound validation, it seems very characteristic of that kind of intense, artistic, maybe slightly toxic environment.
But the final conflict, the really deep betrayal, that came down to screen credit, didn't it?
Yeah, the credit fight. It started, ironically, from a moment of kindness. During a freezing cold winter shooting in Ireland, Huston generously lent Bradbury his own warm overcoat.
Nice gesture.
Totally. And out of sheer gratitude, this wave of emotional connection, Bradbury impulsively offered Huston a co-credit on the screenplay. He later said he regretted it instantly, knew he shouldn't have done it.
And Huston took him up on it.
Worse. Huston later went behind Bradbury's back and forced the co-credit through the Writers Guild. Even though Bradbury protested, he had proof, physical scripts with only his name on them.
So why didn't the guild side with Bradbury if he had the evidence?
This is the really galling part. The judges essentially told him flat out, if it were anyone else but John Huston, we would give you sole credit.
Unbelievable. They just bowed to power.
Pretty much. It just shows you the institutional power dynamics in old Hollywood.
Yeah.
How hard it was to fight the giants, even when you were right.
Thankfully, not all his Hollywood stuff was quite that dramatic, right? He wrote for Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yeah, 7 episodes. And he said he had a terrific relationship with the producers on that show. Often won script arguments over lunch, apparently. Very collaborative.
Did he interact with Hitchcock himself much?
He did have lunch with Hitchcock, yeah. But found him surprisingly unoriginal in conversation.
Really? Hitchcock?
Yeah, Bradbury had just read Hitchcock's famous interview book with Truffaut, and he said everything Hitchcock said during their lunch was basically just a repeat of comments from the book. Made his interview notes totally useless for publication.
Uh-huh. That's funny. And when Truffaut himself adapted Fahrenheit 451, Bradbury had some input.
He did. He suggested Bernard Herrmann for the score. Herrmann had just been very publicly fired by Hitchcock from Torn Curtain.
Oh, right. Good call.
Yeah, Bradbury called the resulting score beautiful. Though he did think Truffaut made a mistake casting Julie Christie in 2 roles, as both Montag's wife and Clarisse. Felt it confused the central metaphor of the story.
Interesting critique. He was also pretty protective of his time and his themes, wasn't he? Turning down big projects.
Fiercely protective. He turned down huge screenplay offers, like The Man with the Golden Arm because it dealt with drugs and anatomy of a murder, because it dealt with rape.
Why turn them down? The money must have been huge.
He said he found the subject matter just too dark or sensational for his taste. And more importantly, he wanted to spend time with his young family. He prioritized that.
That same protectiveness, maybe, led to that huge legal battle he had with CBS.
Oh, the Playhouse 90 plagiarism suit. Yeah, that was a multi-year slog. It started when a complete stranger called him from Connecticut, right in the middle of the broadcast in 1957.
What did the caller say?
Told him, "Mr. Bradbury, you're being robbed right at this very moment." Bradbury watched and realized CBS had basically lifted the entire premise and plot of Fahrenheit 451 for this live TV drama.
Wow, so he sued.
He tried. But get this, his own agents refused to handle the suit because they had conflicts of interest, working heavily with both him and CBS.
So what did he do?
He took them to court himself, on his own dime, wrote most of the legal briefs himself, lost the first round, kept pushing it all the way to the Supreme Court. It took 3 years.
Did he win in the end?
The outcome wasn't totally clear from the source, but he ultimately decided the whole exhausting process was not worth it. And it just proves his tenacity. He wouldn't let his work be stolen without a fight.
Okay, so moving away from the Hollywood drama, let's get into the engine room. His actual creative methodology. He called himself a juggernaut, right? This constant, unstoppable force.
Yes, that was his self-description, and his approach was incredibly intuitive, almost anti-intellectual in a way. He famously never used outlines or plots.
Which is amazing for someone writing genre fiction, sci-fi, fantasy. You'd think you'd need an outline.
Right, but he believed you can't plot tomorrow or next year. He argued that plotting a book beforehand actually removes the energy and vitality. It turns writing into just like architecture, filling in a blueprint instead of discovery.
So how did he start? What was the technique?
His main technique involved making these long associative lists of personal nouns. He called them his lizards.
Wizards.
Yeah, like these small flickering images from his subconscious that he had to sort of catch and pin down on the page.
So what kind of nouns?
They weren't random words. They were very personal triggers, meant to dredge my subconscious, as he put it. Things like the jar, the cistern, the lake, the skeleton, or another list might be the night, the crickets, the train whistle.
And he'd just write those down.
Yep. Write down the list, look at it, and then just start writing a story about whichever noun sort of. They'd started talking to him that day. He was basically poking his own internal Rorschach test, using memory and emotion as fuel, not logic.
That connects to his advice for young writers, doesn't it? That reading prescription.
Exactly. He had this strict regimen he recommended. Read one essay, one poem, and one short story every single night for 1,000 nights.
Wow, that's almost 3 years.
Yeah. And the goal wasn't just general knowledge. The goal was that at the end of those 1,000 nights, you would have collected 3,000 metaphors. Those metaphors become your antenna, your mental library, allowing ideas to spark naturally, intuitively from all that collected data.
He also had this playful way of tricking his own mind, didn't he? Comparing his muse to a cat.
Yeah, he'd provoke his psyche by pretending to ignore his ideas. He'd sit down and say out loud, I wonder what I did yesterday. Knowing that his creative self, his inner cat, would get curious and follow him, chase after the idea he was pretending to ignore.
And he found out Fellini did something similar.
Yes, the great Italian director, Federico Fellini. They met, and Fellini apparently told him, "Ray, I don't want to know what I'm doing when I start a film." Which totally confirmed Bradbury's instinct that too much intentionality, too much conscious planning can actually smother creativity. Let the subconscious lead.
And you can trace so many of his famous stories back to these really simple triggers, right? These noun lists or just a what-if question.
Oh, absolutely. Take the drummer boy of Shiloh. Classic story. Where did it come from? He read a newspaper obituary, just a line mentioning the dead man's great-grandfather had been that drummer boy in the Civil War.
Just the noun, drummer boy.
That was it. That single phrase ignited the entire story in his mind.
Or downwind from Gettysburg. That came from Disney.
Yeah, a casual conversation with Walt Disney himself. They were looking at the huge, new, robotic Abraham Lincoln being built for Disneyland. Yeah. And Bradbury just idly commented, Walt, what if someone rides into Disneyland on a horse and shoots Lincoln?
What did Disney say?
Disney immediately said, "Ray, you have to write that story." And he did.
Amazing. What about the parrot who met Papa?
Another great example of the antenna at work. He heard a story way back in 1952. Just a rumor about a parrot in a Cuban bar that used to talk to Ernest Hemingway. The idea just sat in his files for years. Then, after Hemingway's suicide, the connection sparked. The premise suddenly became clear. What if that parrot is still alive? And what if Papa told that parrot his final secret story before he died? That's the intuition connecting two distant points, the parrot rumor and the later tragedy.
And the jar, that famously creepy story.
That came from something truly disturbing he saw when he was 14. An exhibit down on the Venice Pier in L.A. It had fetuses animal and apparently human preserved in jars, getting progressively bigger.
Oh, wow, that's grim.
Totally grim. But that image, stored away since age 14, became this mechanism of psychological terror decades later in the story.
Even There Will Come Soft Rains, the automated house story. That came from a personal fear.
Deeply personal. He was born one night soon after he married his wife, Maggie. The U.S. was doing bomb experiments. The Cold War was ramping up. And he just turned to her and asked, "What if we never wake up?" He said he had to write that story just to relieve himself of that existential dread. The writing was catharsis.
So his idea generation was very intuitive, subconscious. But the actual writing process, the daily grind, that sounds like it was quite rigorous.
Oh, yeah, the zen of it, as you called it. It was disciplined. He wrote for just 2 hours every single day, even Sundays, no days off.
Only 2 hours. But he was so prolific.
He said if you truly love what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. He claimed it's over in an hour. Apparently, he could pump out 1,500, even 2,000 words in just 60 minutes when he was really flowing. Almost industrial output, but driven purely by passion.
And famously, no computers. Ever.
Never. He called a computer just another typewriter. He stuck with his IBM Selectric typewriter his whole life, loved the physical feel, the sound, the connection.
And he didn't revise much either. No spell check.
Nope. He basically said, if I don't know how to spell by now, I shouldn't be writing. His form of editing was mainly retyping.
Retyping the whole thing.
Yeah. He'd do the first draft really fast, impulsively. Then, to edit, he'd retype the entire piece quickly, letting his subconscious naturally provide better words, smoother phrases as he went. He described the final polish as just running a damp rag over the story. It was about instinct and momentum, not painstaking correction.
He saw himself as drawing from a huge range of influences, didn't he? Like a heap of trash.
Yeah, conglomerate heap of trash, with his phrase.
Yeah.
But one that burns with a high flame. He happily admitted to ingesting everything Poe, Edgar Rice Burroughs, Shakespeare.
He learned specific techniques too, right? Like objectivity from Steinbeck.
Yes. He specifically credited reading John Steinbeck's short story Chrysanthemums with teaching him how to write objectively, how to describe the action and dialogue without constantly dipping into the character's inner thoughts. Just show, don't tell, essentially.
And he even borrowed a structural idea from Steinbeck for the Martian Chronicles.
That's right. Those short, atmospheric linking chapters between the main stories in Martian Chronicles. He said he got that idea directly from Steinbeck's use of similar descriptive bridge chapters in The Grapes of Wrath. He was always learning, always synthesizing, even from contemporaries.
Now, despite being this, champion of creativity and driven by love, he had a really major, painful falling out over creative ethics with another giant of the genre, Rod Serling.
The Serling conflict. Yeah, that's a sad one. It seems Serling probably unintentionally plagiarized.
Wow.
He apparently based the pilot episode of The Twilight Zone unconsciously on a story from Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles. Serling himself realized it later, called Bradbury up, confessed everything, and offered to buy the rights to the story to make it right.
Okay. Seems like a decent way to handle it.
Yeah, and Bradbury accepted the gesture.
Yeah.
But then, nothing. The lawyers never called to arrange the payment.
Ugh. Awkward.
Worse, Serling told Bradbury again, apologized again, promised the lawyers would call this time. But again, radio silence. Nothing happened.
So Bradbury felt disrespected.
Deeply. He saw it as a fundamental failure of ethics, especially when he heard Serling might have had similar issues with other writers. For Bradbury, it wasn't about the money. It was about the principle, the respect between writers.
And it ended the friendship.
Completely. He was so upset by the disregard that he wrote Serling this final, very harsh letter. He later called it the first letter I'd ever written to end a friendship. For a man so focused on connection and love, breaking that tie over an ethical lapse must have been incredibly painful.
That strong sense of ethics, it also showed up during the McCarthy-era blacklisting in Hollywood, didn't it? With the film Friendly Persuasion.
Oh yeah, that's a great example of his integrity. He was offered the chance to work on the movie Friendly Persuasion. They told him the existing screenplay was basically perfect, just needed maybe a polish.
Sounds like an easy gig.
Except the original screenwriter, Michael Wilson, was blacklisted at the time due to McCarthyism. They essentially wanted Bradbury to put his name on Wilson's script.
To cover it up.
Exactly. To lend his name to it, take the credit, and effectively erase the blacklisted writer. And Bradbury refused, flat out.
Wow, even though the script was good.
Yep. He refused to take the paycheck and participate in the injustice. Instead, he told the producers what they should do. Pay the original author, Michael Wilson, properly but secretly, and then shoot the excellent script under an assumed name or no name if needed. Protect the writer and the work.
Did they listen?
They eventually did. They shot Wilson's script, paid him under the table, I believe, and that screenplay later got nominated for an Academy Award. It proved Bradbury right. Sticking to your ethics, even when it costs you, was the right thing to do. When it came to politics, Bradbury was really adamant about avoiding labels. Hated being called conservative or liberal. He always insisted he was philosophically middle of the road.
Yeah, his focus seemed to be more on practical results than on ideology, right? Like his comments on Reagan's tax cuts.
Exactly. He wasn't endorsing Reaganism wholesale. He just said he openly credited those specific tax cuts with helping the economy recover from the high unemployment of the late 70s, early 80s.
Wow.
He said he tracked the job numbers month by month and saw millions of new jobs created.
So he saw it as just sensible.
That was his word. Sensible. Not conservative, not liberal, just effective based on the data he saw. He judged policies based on whether they seemed to work, not which party proposed them.
And economically, his personal views were super independent, almost anti-establishment.
Oh, fiercely independent. He lived by this strict code of avoiding debt, hated it, expressed deep distrust for Wall Street for mortgages. He paid off his own house really quickly and refused to buy anything on time until he actually had the cash in hand.
That sounds less like just fiscal conservatism and more like a deeper philosophy, maybe?
I think so. It felt like a refusal to be indebted, period, whether to a bank or an ideology or anything else. He wanted to ensure his creative life was never compromised by financial pressure or obligation. Total freedom.
He learned early on about the dangers of groupthink, too, didn't he? That technocracy movement experience.
Yeah, that was formative. In his late teens, he got involved with technocracy, this idea of a government run purely by technical experts and scientists. Sounds logical, right? Very high-minded.
It seems appealing on the surface.
But then he went to a meeting, and he saw members starting to wear these matching gray suits, and it just clicked for him. He realized that this kind of organized conformity, even in pursuit of something seemingly rational like scientific government, was not that much different from fascism or communism.
The uniform was the giveaway.
The uniform, the group identity overriding the individual. The moment he saw that, he was out. It cemented his lifelong suspicion of any ism that demanded conformity.
And how did that translate to his views on censorship? He wrote the ultimate anti-censorship novel, after all.
Yeah, Fahrenheit 451 looms large there. His view is really clear. Censorship should never be done by the government. That's always the ultimate danger.
So who should censor, if anyone?
He argued it's a family and individual issue. If you don't like something, a book, a movie, whatever, then don't buy it, don't read it, don't watch it. That's your right. But the moment the government steps in to define morality for everyone, you're on a very slippery slope, and there's no logical stopping point.
He also overcame a pretty significant personal barrier later in life, didn't he? His fear of flying.
Oh, the aviophobia. Yeah, he didn't fly until he was 62 years old, 1982.
62. What finally got him on a plane?
Pure circumstance. He was down in Florida for the opening of EPSOT Center at Disney World. His train home got unexpectedly canceled. He was basically stranded, cornered by fate.
So what did he do?
He famously told his Disney host, okay, get me 3 double martinis and then pour me on the airplane.
Huh? Did it work?
It did. And what he realized on that flight was crucial. He figured out his fear wasn't actually a flying of the plane crashing. His fear was of himself. He was afraid he would panic, that he would run up and down the aisle screaming for them to stop the plane.
Ah, fear of losing control.
Exactly. And when that didn't happen, when he just sat there, maybe slightly buzzed, the fear dissolved, he conquered it, and actually became a frequent flyer after that. The monster was internal, not external.
And as we mentioned, he stayed fiercely analog in his work. No computers.
Never owned one. Though he did concede that his constantly whirring fax machine, which he used all the time to communicate with agents and editors, was his one single concession to modern electric technology. Everything else was the IBM Selectric.
He also had this interesting distinction between optimism and something else.
Yeah, he resisted the label optimist. He preferred the term optimal behavior.
Optimal behavior, what does that mean?
It means behaving, quote, to the top of your genetics every single day, shouting at the top of your lungs, metaphorically speaking, and listening for the echoes. It's about action. He argued that taking that optimal action is what creates the feeling of optimism. It's not some inherent state you're born with. It's a choice of effort, of engagement.
And that focus on action, on work, that was his coping mechanism for grief too, wasn't it, when his wife Maggie died?
Absolutely key. They were married for 56 years. When she died, he went back to work the very next week.
Wow. That sounds tough, maybe even cold to some.
Maybe, but for him, it was survival. He lived by his 3 rules for getting through life, especially tough times. Rule 1, get your work done.
Okay.
Rule 2, if that doesn't work, shut up and drink your gin.
Pragmatic.
And rule 3, when all else fails, run like hell.
Oh.
But rule number 1 was primary. He saw work, creation, engagement, not as a distraction from grief or depression, but as the only truly meaningful answer to it. His advice was always, if you're depressed, get off your ass and go do something. Action cures despair.
Shifting to the future, his passion for space exploration was immense, wasn't it? He saw it as more than just science.
Oh, much more. He saw space exploration as humankind's essential immortality project. It was the only way, he believed, we could guarantee the long-term survival of the species. We had to leave Earth eventually, before our sun dies. The drive to the stars was literally a survival mechanism baked into us.
And he had a specific strategy in mind, right, about the moon and Mars.
Yeah, he was very clear and quite critical of NASA's direction sometimes. He firmly believed we needed to build a solid foundation, a real city, on the moon first. Use lunar resources, use its proximity, establish ourselves there, and then use the moon as the launch pad to go to Mars.
Not go straight to Mars.
No. He lamented the decades he felt were wasted by basically giving up on the moon after Apollo. He saw that lunar foundation is absolutely crucial, a necessary stepping stone we skipped, delaying our Martian future.
And despite his lifelong refusal to drive a car, he did eventually drive something pretty spectacular.
Yes. The irony is just perfect. He had this profound fear of cars, wouldn't get a license, ever since witnessing a horrific fatal car accident when he was 14, which, by the way, inspired his chilling story, The Crowd.
Right. Cars were death machines to him.
Exactly. But then, late in life, he got the chance to remotely drive the Mars rover Spirit or Opportunity, I believe, from the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena.
So the man who feared the internal combustion engine got to drive a vehicle on another planet.
The ultimate vehicle. He got the license, metaphorically, to drive the most important car in human history across the surface of Mars. It's just a beautiful, weird, perfect Bradbury moment.
Finally, let's touch on his spiritual outlook. It seems consistent with everything else, expansive, energetic, maybe unconventional.
Very much so. He completely rejected the idea of an anthropomorphic God, a literal bearded man in the sky. Instead, he believed the universe is the power. The whole universe, and you and me in it, are part of the energy framework.
So God is the universe itself, the energy.
That seems to be the core of it. And within that framework, figures like Christ become incredibly important, but as something else. As a necessary and profound literary symbol, a philosophical figure. He argued that the miraculous aspects of the story, the virgin birth, the resurrection, those were essential metaphors.
Yeah.
Metaphors humanity needs to survive, to conceptualize complex feelings about goodness, sacrifice, love, renewal.
So if Christ is a metaphor, what does that imply for us, for humanity?
His conclusion was radical and empowering. The metaphor is universal. You are Christ. I am Christ. We are God, all of us. The divine isn't some separate entity outside of us. It's the energy framework that we inhabit, that we are, and that we contribute to through our actions and our love.
And the afterlife, then?
That's simply the echo of what you are. It's the work you leave behind, the impact you have, your children, the memories you create in others. That's your immortality.
And prayer. What was prayer to him?
Prayer wasn't about petitioning some external force. He said prayer is only you talking to yourself. It's giving yourself internal instructions on what you love and then giving yourself permission to go and do it. If you're joyful about your work, if you're engaged in what you love, you are, in effect, already praying. You're aligning yourself with that universal energy. So we've journeyed through this incredible mind, Ray Bradbury's mind. We've seen how that power of, unconditional love, maybe that disputed gift of total recall, that lightning strike from Mr. Electrico, and that constant dredging of his subconscious as lizards, how all that defined his just immense output.
Yeah, it's quite a tapestry, and he received every major award you can think of, right? But his real measure of success, it wasn't the plaques or the medals.
Not at all. He always said it was the immense feedback of love from his readers, from his fans. He often stated that the emotional energy he got from knowing he changed just one single person's life was infinitely more valuable than, say, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
And his final legacy, the thing he hoped for, is tied right back to that grand vision of space, wasn't it?
Absolutely. He said the thing that made him happiest, the image he held onto, was knowing that maybe on dead Mars, 200 years from now, some little boy or girl would be hiding under the covers with a flashlight, reading the Martian Chronicles.
That was his forever, his way of living forever, like Mr. Electrico promised.
Exactly. That was his measure of immortality.
But maybe the most profound, the most actionable lesson we can take away from all these unfiltered conversations, it involves something that pushes right back against his idea of optimal behavior. It's a challenge he faced himself as a boy, something that forced him to really define his own destiny. He called it joy envy.
Ah, joy envy. Yeah, that's powerful. It happened when he was 9. Buck Rogers comics had just started appearing right at the beginning of the Great Depression.
Okay.
And Bradbury started meticulously collecting the panels, totally obsessed. But all the other kids in his 5th grade class, they mocked him relentlessly for it.
Why? What did they say?
They told him there is no future.
Hmm.
This is depression, remember?
Hmm.
They said rocket ships were stupid, science fiction was nonsense, dreaming was pointless, just pure negativity.
And he listened to them.
For a moment, tragically, yes.
Hmm.
He listened to the fools, as he later called them. He went home and tore up his precious Buck Rogers comic strips. He sacrificed his own future joy just for temporary social acceptance from the mockers.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
He said he cried for 3 days afterward.
Hmm.
And he asked himself, who's dead here? And the answer came back, you are. You killed the future. He realized what those children were doing, what people often do, was joy envy.
Explain that a bit more. Joy envy.
It's that pervasive, insidious danger of listening to people who try to take away your happiness, your passions, your potential, usually because they lack the courage or the imagination or the joy to pursue their own. They want to pull you down to their level.
So what did he do after he realized that?
He went right back to collecting Buck Rogers, and he made a vow right then and there at age 9. Never again would he listen to one damn fool in his life. He decided the only way to live optimally was to ignore the detractors, ignore the joy killers, and feed the things that made his own heart burn with that high flame.
He basically cured his own broken future by recognizing joy envy and committing fully to optimal behavior, choosing passion over conformity. So we leave you, the listener, with this provocative thought. If Bradbury's right, if prayer is just you talking to yourself and giving instructions on what you love to go and do, then what instructions are you giving yourself right now? What joys might you be letting others mock out of existence? Are you behaving to the top of your genetics? Or are you maybe still listening to the fools? Go find your inner lizard, nail it to the typewriter, and, well, live forever.